Okay, so this is going to be my final video on the Pentax K3 Mark III Monochrome. I've been using it now for over 3 months. I've used many lenses, bought and sold quite a few as well. I've tried the camera out in wildlife, still subjects, macro, so I feel like I've really covered the bases of all the aspects of photography I use. And hopefully I can give some genuine advice to everyone out there who's looking for more information on it. So we'll start with the positives. As evident from my last videos, there's nothing out there that will give you the tonality of that this camera can produce. I've never shot with anything so sharp. The frames per second are excellent. Another important factor, the viewfinder, possibly the same size as a full frame camera. It's quite hard to tell, which is very impressive from an APS-C camera. So you're getting a massive viewfinder compared to the format size. So there again, that's a big plus. Weather sealing, build quality, as good, if not better than any Canon camera I've used, Nikon camera, definitely better than Sony equipment right now. And the form factor of the camera I found very good as well. I've done a lot of long-term shooting out in the woods, so 3-4 hours, walking around with the large lenses on it, and the grip on it is pretty decent. So my negatives, I've mentioned in previous videos that I haven't been getting on with the autofocus. I've mentioned in the comments and chatted with other people as well. I'm really struggling to get my head around it. I've watched some of Kobe's videos. He seems to be the main information point on YouTube right now for this kind of photography. And I've got to be honest, it is driving me crazy. I've tried all sensitivity settings. I've tried the autofocus type variations. I've tried the various autofocus point selection methods, so you select or auto or group or just spot focusing. I've got a lot of experience with cameras, and this is probably the hardest one I've ever had to set up. In some cases I've had some excellent results and I can't explain why. In other cases, with something simple like a static object and I'm holding a continuous focus on it, I cannot get the camera to settle. If a subject is continuously moving, this is not very obvious until you've fired off, say, 6 or 7 shots. And about half of those shots, they're about 2 or 3 centimeters plus or minus out of the range where you'd expect them to be. Whereas with other brands, even my Sony camera, I didn't really have that issue. On the other hand, let's say a quarter of the time, something will happen in front of me, like a dragonfly will fly past, and the K3 Mark III just snaps onto it and I'll get 3 shots all in focus and I don't understand why. So I don't know what's going on. So I'm not going to say this camera has focusing issues because I've seen people on YouTube do excellent photography with it, no problem. So take that for what you will, something to bear in mind. Definitely something you have to try out yourself and feel the character of how it works. I was going through my film archives and then comparing them with just some samples I've taken with this one, and let's say even my Ilford Pan F50 photographs of kingfishers, compared them to the files coming out the Monochrome, was just pointless. Now I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear that. There's a lot of die-hard film photographers out there, but I can guarantee you, if you gave one of them this camera for a day, they would change their mind very quickly. And I have to admit, film has a special place in my heart, but this camera makes me forget about it. This camera has allowed me to let go of a lot of film cameras I've been using for well over a decade really, because there's no point to them. I'm not gaining anything out of them that I can't get with this camera, and this camera makes it so much easier. And another thing I found, during a few stormy days where my subjects weren't showing up to photograph, I came home, went through some archives, looked at some old photographs, and there were some photographs I'd taken with the Nikon D7100 and the 200-500 lens that blew me away, and I hadn't even realised at the time. When I was looking at them, I thought they were shots on my 600 lens. The quality, the depth feel to the image was there, and quite interestingly, that depth is what I was looking for in my images. I was looking in the wrong direction. My conclusion is the reason I liked the Canon 5D photograph of the kingfisher so much was the proximity I'd taken the photograph. And the more I looked at my favourite photographs, I realised this. Most of them aren't cropped, they're close proximity, and there's maybe just a touch of movement in there. It's not perfectly crisp. There was someone in one of my previous videos that commented on that, about how it, there's a lot to say about an image with a touch of movement in it. It gives it a bit more life, and I think that's quite true. A clinical image is easy to forget, but something with a bit of character sticks out. I've also purchased the K1 Mark II. Now the reason being is I do a lot of colour photography for macro work. I also obviously photograph kingfishers. I want to get into finding fox dens and photographing cubs and stuff like that. Now here's something you're not going to read on the internet. I've been doing tracking shots with it, action shots, and I have not found an issue with the autofocus system. So this is what is leading me to suspect there may be a problem with my monochrome unit. Everything I read online says the K1 is lackluster on the autofocus. However, in all of my experience with it, it's anything but lackluster. If anything, I've been picking up the K1 more often because I can rely on it better. That kind of raises an alarm bell for me that perhaps I'm using a dodgy unit, or perhaps I'm just terrible with the K3 Mark III. So the very short summary of this is, the K3 Mark III monochrome is so good at black and white photography, I don't even use film anymore. I'm not even thinking about using film. The resolution is unreal, and the ergonomics and build, unbelievable. This is as honest as I can be. I hope it helps clarify what you can expect from it, and perhaps someone out there can answer my questions about the autofocus. It'd be interesting to know. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one.